Hi everyone, this is Dan Gregg speaking. Today I thought I'd do a Hebrew lesson for you. I've got this new interlinear called the ESV. Let me see, I'll flip it over here and show you what it is. Get rid of the glare of the light there. The Hebrew English interlinear ESV Old Testament. Now, I have lots of interlinears on my shelf and lots of Hebrew Bibles, but I bought this one in particular because the Hebrew text is exceptionally clear and the other versions are very shoddy. For instance, here's the Owens. This is one of the less shoddy ones, but still, it's not as clear as it could be. Oh, no, I'm still looking at the ESV here. Here's Owens. You can see how the letters are not as crisp in here. And plus you have to put up with all the parsing information in the text. So in my opinion, this is the interlinear with the clearest text. So clear, in fact, that I can focus on it through the back of my camera. And that's a big deal because now I can talk about it without a whole lot of editing work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out here to what they teach you, what they don't teach you in seminary. Okay. So the text starts out, let's read the Hebrew. Wehamalek. Alright. Now let me show you my translation of this passage here. We're going to ignore the ESV for the moment here. So, here's the translation of the passage. And the king, Dawid, was old, coming in 2 days. Then they covered him with blankets, or with the blankets. And not he warms himself. Alright, so let's look at the Hebrew again. There we go. Vehamalek Dawid Zaken Ba Bayamin Wayekasuhu Ba Bagadim Velo Yecham Lo. Okay, so I have 16 comments on the text here that we're going to go through. And this is where we really get some knowledge of Hebrew and how we'll find out why learning Hebrew is necessary. Because you can't contain all this information. A lot of stuff is lost in translation. Now you see where the ESV we have Wehamelech. That's 3 words. Wehamelech. Which they translated, now the king. So the translation of the king is fine, Hamelech. But the word now is an interpretation. The conjunction here is what's called wav conjunctive, pronounced we, with a W, we, with a short schwa sound. And it simply means and. It has no temporal implications at all. It's only referring to it's like an introductory word, okay? So it's wav conjunctive. Let me turn the notes over here because I got to remind myself. Okay, so there's another wav called a wav consecutive, which is attached to verbs, and that's pronounced wa. And yet another wav called wav remote, which I pronounce uwa, which would mean, and I'll explain those when we come to examples of those in the text. The wav remote is rare. It can only be determined from context. Okay. Note number 2. Dawid. Now you see here it's printed David, but the wav letter only took on the V sound much later in history. And we know from the Septuagint and the New Testament that it's Dawid because it's spelled with a U sound. Okay, so we'll look at the note here. Let's see. Notes page. There we go. LXX in New Testament. Dawid. Okay. And I think the Arabs might pronounce it that way too. And Arabic often preserves elements that are lost in more recent Hebrew. Okay. Focus on the next word here. They translated in the ESV, he was old. Now, the word old is an adjective, and the word was is interpolated. And since the subject is already supplied, Dawid, I'm going to learn to focus this and keep it focused. Dawid, we don't need to repeat the he. Okay, now, the parsing guide says this is a perfect verb. But the thing is that this form is ambiguous between an adjective and a perfect verb. And I take it as an adjective. So as we see here, David was old. And we interpolate was. Now a little remark on this. The verb to be is implied in Hebrew. Okay, so there is a verb to be in Hebrew, haya, but it's used for emphasis or to mean become. So when the author wants to emphasize the word, then he'll use the explicit word haya for the form of it to be. But here we just have a plain adjective, zakein, old. David, old. So don't be confused by the wordiness of the interlinear here. Okay, so the next word here, and the next comment is on the word coming here. Coming into days. Coming into days. Okay, so the word advanced is an interpretation. The word ba in Hebrew actually is ambiguous. It's either a participle or a perfect verb. And the parsing guide says perfect, but again, I take it as a participle here. And it simply means coming. All right. So now we'll move on to Bayamin. Okay, so they translated it in the years. Okay, but literally it means in the days. Okay, or into the days, into the years. All right, so the comment here is that the ba, which they translated in, often gives a sense of motion to a place that one or something comes to be in, or comes to finally be in. Okay, so coming into the days. And we might as well write in the definite article here, which I left out. There we go. Coming into the days. All right. So now let's comment on the word days here. Days in the plural, yamim, is the Hebrew idiom for years, because years are conceived of as being 365 or 366 days. Yamin means either a year or years. So the plural form either means a single year or it can mean years. And this would be an advanced lesson, but plural concepts that would be plural in English are often represented by singulars in Hebrew, especially when it comes to numbers. All right. So this is lost in translation by doing years, but you can see by reading the Hebrew. There we go. Nice, clear, and crisp. Bayamim. That it means, Yamim is from the Hebrew word Yom, the plural of Yom, Bayamim, into the years. Okay, into the days, literally. Okay, so our next comment here. We're going to go to the next verb here. Okay. And they covered him. Okay, but this is an imperfect verb, okay? So translating the verbal word past tense is really incorrect. Let's see, where did I put the note here? Okay, so we're going to start out with the beginning. Wayakasuhu. This is a wav consecutive, so you can see the ah vowel there under the wav. Wa, okay? So this means that now the timeline is moving forward. So we just get setting with this wav conjunctive over here. And then the setting is set. Now the wa moves time forward. So the more correct interpretation or translation of this is to use the word then. Then. Okay, like in then next. Wayakasuhu. Okay, so let's notice a few things about this verb covered. This is a PL imperfect, or PL imperfect. Okay, and that's shown by the doubling of the. You can see the samak there. You can see the dot. It's a doubling. Okay, and the uhu are pronouns that go with the verb. The who means him. Okay, on the very end. The u means they, that's the subject. Okay, and that's only represented by the 3 dots there. See the 3 dots? Okay, and the PL is the shwa, the comets, and the doubling. Okay, and the doubling, if you notice, is in the position, the same position where you would put a heful infix. But it's like a nephal doubling, okay? So this is the secret of the PL, a controversial tense in Hebrew scholarship and linguistic. But I take it and as a causative passive, and the passive is in here to impart emphasis, okay? So it's causative and emphatic, and it's imperfect. So we want to render it according to a durative or present sense. So on number 10 here, we have the pile imperfect conjugation. Okay, so I use the present tense make, the word make, to represent the causative sense, which is doubled at the heful position, and or emphatic static. Okay, and then the word be, make, be covered. Okay, and covered's just a participle here. It's not part of the tense. The make is carrying the tense. Then they make, be covered him. Okay, so wayakasuhu. Okay. Okay, we got to get this to focus again. Get out of the shadows there. Zoom in. Wayakasuhu. Okay. Then they make, be covered him. All right. So let's go on to the next part of our sentence. With the blankets. Okay. Babagadim. Okay, so that's a preposition, ba. The ah sound is a definite article, da. they translated bagadim as plural, so the im is plural. The base noun is beged, which they translated clothes. But in Hebrew, if you read enough Hebrew, you will find out that the word beged covers a lot more territory or range of meaning than the English word clothes. Beged basically means anything, any kind of garment that one would cover oneself with. And this evidently here extends to blankets, because of course if David was out and about, he would be wearing clothes all the time, but this means they put additional blankets on him. Alright. Okay, and commented on who, so we turn the page here. Okay. So let's move on to the next verb here, which I translated. And not he warms himself. Okay. I'm going to find it in the text here. Velo. Okay, so they've put the word but in there, and that's somewhat misleading because it's a wav conjunctive again. Velo. And the word but imparts a contrastive emphasis. But the wav conjunctive, we, and it may have that sense in the context, but it doesn't have to. It also is just a simple observation of a fact. Okay. Let me read the note here. Wav conjunctive versus but. An interpretation that places emphasis on a contrary result. There's no emphasis to the result, just an observation of the result. Okay, so velo. Should probably translate it just and not. Okay, so we move on to the verb. He grew warm for him. Now, this is a little wordy and unnecessary. Okay, so let's look at note number 14. There it is. And not he warms himself. Okay. Alright, so this is an imperfect, and the imperfect carries a durative aspect. We're looking at the word yicham here, okay? So I use the present tense to represent this. That's just why I have translated, and not he warms himself. Okay. Alright, then we have lo, preposition, and an object pronoun. Okay, so notice the lamed here. Lamed is often used like et to mark the verbal object and may be omitted in translation. So if you find yourself trying to gloss to for every lamed preposition and trying to make sense of it, you are trying too hard. So I just translated as he warms himself. Okay, so I left out the comment on note 15 here, so we'll throw that in. Okay, he himself. The Hebrew means either the pronoun he, it, or himself. So here again we need to use context to determine which it is. Okay, and himself seems to be the best here. In other words, reflexive. Okay, so that makes more simple sense out of the Hebrew, and I guess that's my first lesson, and we'll see how this comes off. Thank you for listening.